The Valari were a peaceful race. For thousands of years they lived in quiet harmony on green worlds and floating cities above silver oceans. They had no armies, no weapons beyond small defense drones. To them, war was a mistake of primitive mind, something that had no place in the age of reason and unity. But peace does not stop the void from hungering. And when the darkness came, it came without mercy. It began with a whisper across the stars. One colony went silent, then another. Entire planets simply vanished. No wreckage, no survivors. Only cold, lifeless silence where life once bloomed. The Valari High Council tried everything: diplomacy, signals, trade negotiations, but nothing answered. Nothing stopped the darkness. What attacked them wasn't an empire. It wasn't even a fleet. It was something else. Something older. Something cruel. Came like a shadow and stripped the soul from the world. Cities fell without fire. Minds broke without pain. Those who survived called it the Eaters of Essence. But no one knew their name. Because the moment you saw them, you forgot who you were. Desperate. The Valari did the unthinkable. They activated the ancient Bacana forbidden device from a time long before their peaceful age. It was a long-range pulse, one that could be heard even across dead galaxies. They coded one word into it: "help," and then they waited. For 10 days, there was no answer. The council debated surrender. Some argued to make peace with death. Others wanted to evacuate. But no matter where they went, the enemy would follow. There was nowhere safe anymore. And then, on the 11th day, something changed. A signal appeared. Not from a known world. Not from a regular alliance channel. It came from deep within, an old sector uncharted. Dangerous. It came from a place the galaxy had learned to avoid. It came from Earth. There was no message, no introduction. Only a cold scan wave, like eyes sweeping across the entire Valari system. Then, one by one, massive ships entered real space. They did not flash. They did not roar. They simply appeared, like silent titans emerging from a dream. 52 warships, each one bigger than anything the Valari had ever seen. Their hulls were black, scarred and layered with armor that looked more alive than metal. Some bristled with rail cannons longer than skyscrapers. Others had no visible weapons, just hums of power that made nearby electronics flicker. The Valari citizens panicked. Who are they? What are these machines? Why are they not responding? But the humans said nothing. Their ships moved into orbit above Valari Prime and activated scanning systems. They mapped everything: terrain, gravity, resource veins, enemy patterns, energy traces. They didn't ask. They didn't explain. They simply prepared. Inside the lead vessel, a ship called Wrath of Terra Commander Ellen Rourke stood in full armor, her face unreadable under her matte black helmet. Her eyes were sharp, her voice calm. Around her stood Deathworlder officers, each trained not just to fight, but to end wars. They were not diplomats, were not peacekeepers. They were forged on a planet where everything tried to kill them, from the air, the ground, the sea, and even their own kind. Earth was called a death world for a reason. Those who survived it learned one thing above all: you do not wait for the threat to come. You bring the war first. Back on Valari Prime, Counselor Ren Verez stood on the balcony of the high tower, looking up at the strange ships in orbit. He had voted against the beacon's use. He'd warned that calling Deathworlders would be a mistake. But now, they were here. And they were silent. Not a word had been spoken. Not a single message had been sent. That to him was worse than any invasion. Then, as if the galaxy itself had taken a breath, the humans moved. The lead ships deployed dropships sleek, sharp machines that descended like black knives from orbit. They didn't land in cities. They landed outside them, in the forests, the mountains, the oceans. Within minutes, they began constructing outposts. Machines unfolded from crates. Drones flew in perfect formation. Massive walking tanks stomped into place, scanning the sky with energy lances. Valari watchers tried to approach, but human soldiers warned them away without speaking. Just a single hand raised. And that was enough. Counselor Wren called for communication. He sent signals, requests, pleas. Finally, one reply came. It was only 2 words. Hold position. The Valari still didn't know what these humans were. They didn't look like monsters. They didn't speak like conquerors, but their presence was heavy. Like waiting near a lion's den knowing it might not eat you, but knowing it could. And then 2 nights after the human arrival, the sky cracked. A Valari outpost on the far moon sent a distress flare. The enemy had returned. But this time, Earth saw them. Human orbital scanners picked up distortion fields, evidence of quantum folding. Something was arriving. Something big. Commander Rourke didn't hesitate. All forces to battle readiness. Launch full-scale intercept. No negotiations, no warning. Within seconds, the war machine moved. 12 human ships turned as one and opened their silos. From each came waves of drones, black-winged and pulsing with blue energy. Ground cannons rotated toward the stars. Missile trails lit the sky and then fire. The enemy emerged as monstrous shadows, giant insectoid beings with armor that shimmered like liquid shadow. They screamed in minds, not ears. One look at them made Valari soldiers drop in fear. But the humans didn't even blink. Their machines tore through the creatures. Railguns fired slugs at Mach 10, tearing the monsters in half. Walking tanks unleashed plasma storms that cooked the sky. Drones moved in formation, cutting down anything that moved. The humans didn't defend. They eradicated. Commander Rourke watched from orbit. One of her officers turned to her. Enemy threat reduced by 93% in the first 2 minutes. Rourke nodded once. Clean the rest. Leave nothing standing. And so they did. When the dust settled, the battlefield was a crater. Not even ash remained of the enemy. Only human banners stood, black flags with the silver earth symbol, fluttering in artificial wind. The Valari finally understood. They had not called for peace. They had summoned war, and war had answered. But the humans weren't finished, not even close. They were just getting started, because now Earth had seen the enemy, and Earth never forgets. The sky above Valari Prime stayed dark for 3 days, not because of clouds or storms, but because the human fleet had grown so massive that it blocked out the stars. New warships arrived each hour, slipping through space like shadows. Engines made no sound. Their weapons gave no warning. And yet, their presence felt heavier than gravity itself. The Valari people watched in silence, unsure whether they had been saved or conquered. No one from Earth had stepped inside a Valari city. No officer had visited the council. No diplomat had shaken a single hand. The humans did not come to talk. They came to build all across Valari Prime and its moons. The humans established what they called forward kill zones. They constructed towering artillery platforms, energy barriers that shimmered across the horizon, and bunkers deep enough to survive planetary bombardments. Human engineers worked alongside machines that built entire military bases in hours. The Valari had never seen anything like it. To them, war was ancient history. To Earth, war was daily life. Commander Ellen Rourke stood on the bridge of the Wrath of Terra, her arms crossed, helmet under one arm. Her face was marked by years of battle, her eyes cold but alert. Before her, a hologram displayed the entire Valari system. Enemy vectors, weak points, defense lines, red zones and black zones. Nothing in the galaxy was ever treated as safe, not even allies. Beside her, AI command nodes pulsed with quiet data streams. A mechanical voice reported, orbital dominance established, ground territories secure, while kill lanes operational, awaiting hostile reappearance. Commander Rourke nodded. Stand ready. It'll come again, and this time we'll crush it before it breathes. On the ground, Valari citizens gathered near cities to watch the construction. They stood behind invisible lines where human sentry drones floated silent and watching. Anyone who stepped too close was met with a sudden warning light. No violence, no threats. Just a presence that said clearly, "Do not test us." Counselor Wren Varas couldn't sleep. He walked the white marble halls of the high tower looking up. Through its domed ceiling at the black wall of ships above, felt like an ant under a giant boot waiting for it to either lift or crush. He whispered to himself, "Did we make a mistake?" No one answered. The next day, a human drone entered the capital. It moved without escort, without guards. It floated directly to the high tower and displayed a holographic message. Only 2 words: "Prepare civilians." Counselor Wren rushed to decode it. What did it mean? Was this a threat? A warning? Got his answer minutes later. The enemy had returned. It came not in ships, but in the form of space rupture's black holes. In reality itself, tearing open above the far continent of Valari, from these rifts came shapes twisted, monstrous, and made of something the mind rejected. They didn't just eat matter. They unmade it. Cities fell silent before the creatures even touched them. Valari defense systems tried to activate, but they were too slow. It's too small. The enemy reached the outskirts of the capital in minutes, and then the Deathworlders arrived. Human tanks rolled in from underground bunkers. Their armor was thick, ugly, built for endurance, not style. Mechs stomped onto the battlefield, towering steel beasts, their limbs glowing with energy weapons. From the skies came jet-black fighters, no wings, no visible thrusters. Yet they moved faster than thought. The Valari watched in shock as the humans unleashed. Hell, the first enemy wave was met with a wall of flame, napalm strikes, electromagnetic disruptors, sonic bombs that cracked bone at a distance. Deathworlder soldiers marched through the chaos, weapons steady, formation tight, one soldier taller than most, his face hidden behind a skull-like masks. Forward pointed his railgun at the approaching enemy and fired a shot that tore the ground in half. Beside him, another human carried a glowing box. When opened, it released a pulse of blue light that made the enemy scream and melt, not physically, but mentally. The monsters collapsed into ash, their essence pulled from existence. The humans weren't just fighting, they were annihilating Valari. Citizens hid in bunkers. Some tried to peek through the cameras. What they saw didn't make sense. Earth soldiers moved without fear, without panic. Even when one fell, the others didn't flinch. Medbots rushed in, revived the fallen, and sent them back to the front line. It was like watching machines were human skinned by nightfall. The enemy was gone again, but the humans remained. Commander Rourke sent her second message to the Valari High Council. This time, 3 words: "We are staying." Council Wren called an emergency meeting. Some panicked, others wanted to protest. But he silenced them all. He stood and said, "We called them for rescue. This is what rescue looks like for a Deathworlder. We begged for survival. They're giving us domination." There was no vote. There was no resistance, because everyone had seen the sky burn, and they knew without Earth, it would already be dead. But questions remained. What were these creatures that Earth fought so ferociously? Why did humans respond without hesitation? Most of all, what had Earth seen before that made it build such terrible machines? That answer was coming, because the war wasn't over. It had only just begun, and the full might of humanity's war machine was now awake. The night sky above Valari Prime no longer showed stars. Instead, it burned with the cold blue glow of Earth's war fleet. Dozens of new ships had arrived in perfect silence. Their hulls matte black, their movements smooth and sharp like predators. Waiting for the next hunt? No greetings were sent. No declarations made, but every soul below could feel it. Humanity was preparing for something worse. Inside one of the major Valari cities, fear spread like wildfire. The people had been taught peace for generations. They had never seen war, not real war. Their art was full of beauty, their culture full of light. But now, their world was covered in steel bunkers, patrol drones, and human kill zones. The Deathworlders didn't explain what was coming. They didn't have to, because they already knew the enemy was evolving and it was coming back. This time, it didn't roar into the system. It didn't break open the sky. It came quietly to quietly. Earth's scanners picked up only faint energy distortions near the third moon. No life signs, no heat, just static. Commander Ellen Rourke studied the data from her command chair. Aboard Wrath of Terra, her face calm but unreadable. "Analysis?" she asked. Her AI replied, "Energy pattern consistent with prior enemy incursion, but altered, slower, dispersed, not attacking." "Not yet," Rourke said. "Launch drones, full spectrum scan, and prep fire teams." In minutes, a squad of Deathworlder soldiers descended to the surface of Moon 3. They landed on rocky terrain, filled with dust and ruins, an old Valari research station, long abandoned. The wind was dead. The ground was cold. The atmosphere was breathable. Their boots crunched against soil that hadn't seen life in decades. Then came the whispers. One of the soldiers froze. He turned his head, slowly looking into the shadows. "Commander." He whispered into Cums. I think I heard his voice cut off. "Bravo 2, Rourke said sharply. No answer. The rest of the squad turned, weapons raised. But Bravo 2 was standing still now, his rifle lowered, his visor dark. And then he began to laugh. It wasn't human laughter. It was wrong to dry, too hollow, as if someone had stitched the sound together from broken memories. Then he spoke. "I remember the fire. I remember the screams. Why do you keep them inside you?" Another soldier, Bravo 4, stepped forward. "You're not him. You're not Cade. What are you?" The voice inside the suit tilted its head. "I am you. I am all of you. I'm the part you bury. I'm what you want to forget." Then he opened his mouth and screamed. The psychic blast hit all 6 soldiers at once. For 1 second, they saw things they had buried deep. Comrades burning, lovers dying, battles lost. And in that moment of mental chaos, the enemy struck. It came out of the air itself, shadows shaped like men, walking. Forms made of thought and regret. They didn't attack with claws or teeth. They touched. And where they touched, memory bled out. One soldier collapsed, crying, begging for a name he couldn't remember. Another shot himself in the leg just to stay conscious. But these were Deathworlders, trained for every horror, hardened by every nightmare. And they had something else. Pain. Anchors. Inside, each suit was a core of searing neural memory, a trigger that reactivated their worst memory in full. It hurt, yes. But it also grounded them in truth. Bravo 1 activated. His eyes rolled back. Blood leaked from his nose, but he stood, and then he roared. "You think my pain is weakness?" shouted. "I earned it." He raised his flamethrower and burned the shadows into nothing. Above, Commander Rourke gave the next order. "Deploy Echo Screamers. All units activate soul shields. We're not fighting matter anymore. We're fighting memory. The infection before it spreads." Valari Command finally sent a message to the human fleet. "What is happening down there?" Rourke answered with one sentence. "First contact. Within hours, Earth's ground forces were everywhere. Fire teams swept through the dark zones. Mechs scanned for psychic interference. Mobile war chapels were dropped, broadcasting anti-mindwave pulses. Drones floated through the sky, releasing memory-stabilizing chemicals into the air. To the Valari, it looked like madness. To Earth, it was Tuesday. In one city, a group of shadow-infected civilians began repeating a phrase. "Let go, let go, let go." They gathered in silence, staring at nothing. When Mateams approached, they screamed and clawed at their own heads. Deathworlder. Medics didn't panic. They deployed neural scream bombs, small pulses that blasted fear and rage straight into the air. Shattering the control, the civilians collapsed, but they woke up free. Later that night, Counselor Wren met with Commander Rourke face-to-face for the first time. It was not a formal meeting. She met him on a ruined bridge overlooking a smoking. Forest drones flew overhead. Fires glowed in the distance. Wren asked softly, "What are they?" Rourke stared into the fire. "They're not creatures. They're not machines. They're pain. Given form, old pain, buried memory, regret." He frowned. "So how do we stop them?" She looked him in the eyes and said, "We don't." He stepped back, afraid. "Then what are we doing?" She raised her chin. "We teach them to choke on it." Wren didn't understand, but deep in the dark, The enemy did, and it screamed in confusion because it had tried to break the minds of Earth's Deathworlders. And instead, it had swallowed rage. Not just anger, but focused, sharpened. Unrelenting rage, and the Deathworlders were just getting started. The sky above Valari Prime was now part of Earth's command grid. Satellites had been deployed. Orbital cannons floated like silent gods in low orbit. Human ships moved in perfect synchronicity, calculating millions of probabilities per second. The Valari no longer looked up and saw stars. They saw weapons. To the citizens, it felt like a prison. To the humans, oh, it was preparation. Deep in the jungles of Valari's southern continent, something was stirring. Drones picked up strange movement. Underground. Not heat, not sound, just disturbance. Shifting Earth. Vibrations with no source. The last time this happened, an entire city was devoured in seconds. Commander Rourke knew the enemy was coming again, but this time, Earth was ready. Inside the command hub aboard Wrath of Terra, Rourke stood before a massive projection. The war. Grid. Red points marked old attacks. Yellow pulses marked psychic interference. At the center of Valari Prime, her voice echoed through the battle deck. Begin Operation Iron Pulse. At once, the war machine came alive. Hundreds of mechanized units rolled out from hidden bunkers. These weren't standard tanks. These were terraformers, built to reshape battlefields in minutes. They dug trenches, raised walls, and deployed autocannons that could fire non-stop for 30 hours without overheating. Behind them came exowalkers, massive, four-legged machines with plasma turrets and anti-mindwave projectors, and behind them came the soldiers. Deathworlders, men and women born on a planet where every day was survival. Their armor was thick, heavy, unpainted, not designed for beauty. Designed to stop acid, claws, bullets, radiation, and fear. Each suit carried personal AI combat guides, threat analyzers, and memory stabilizers in case of psychic attack. They didn't march. They moved like a single living thing. And then, high above, the flagship opened its lower hangars from the belly of Wrath of Terra. A dark shape dropped from orbit. A new weapon, Project Black Core. It wasn't a missile. It was a walking fortress, 50 meters tall, quad-legged, covered in shifting plates of smart armor that adjusted to every kind of attack. Its primary weapon was a gravitational disruptor, a cannon that could bend mass in a controlled radius and crush enemies without leaving wreckage. Velar. Command watched in awe as the Black Core landed in the middle of a deserted valley and powered up. Its footsteps cracked mountains. Sensors lit up the planet. It sent only one message through Earth's comms. Warform engaged, awaiting threat. Within an hour, the enemy responded. Tearing up from the ground came waves of shadow creatures. Hundreds of them. They surged like liquid, twisting into walls of death. They didn't scream this time. They were focused, smarter, more dangerous. But Earth had studied them, and Earth had built something for them. The first line of defense was the Maquakers. They released sonic charges vibrations that tore shadow from shadow, causing the enemy to fall apart before they touched metal. Sniper teams fired memory-encoded rounds bullets that carried fragments of a soldier's worst memory. When they hit, the creatures howled in confusion, losing form. Then, Black Core fired. A pulse of gravitational force bent the air. The valley cracked open. Everything within 2 kilometers enemy or terrain was flattened. The psychic shockwave hit the capital. Windows shattered. Lights flickered. Valari Council panicked. They demanded a ceasefire. They begged for the humans to stop, but Earth didn't answer. Commander Rourke was calm, focused. She stood inside her bridge, watching the battle feed. Deploy Hellcasters. She said, another class of drone dropped from the sky. These were airborne incinerators, designed not just to kill, but to erase presence-removing energy trails, psychic remnants, even gravitational footprints. Earth had learned long ago that some enemies didn't die when their bodies broke. They died when their memory was wiped. In minutes, the battlefield was silent. The enemy was gone again. But this time, they left something behind. A mark. A strange black monolith half buried in the soil. It pulsed with cold light. Human scanners couldn't decipher it. But the message was clear. We see you now. Later that night, Commander Rourke sat alone in her command chair. Granger, her senior strategist, approached quietly. They're adapting, he said. She nodded. So will we. Granger hesitated. What cost? She turned toward him, her eyes hard. They're trying to unmake everything we are. They want to erase our existence from time itself. If we lose, no one will even remember that we existed. He said nothing, because he knew she was right. The next morning, Earth broadcasts a new signal to all Valari channels. One sentence. This world is now under Deathworlder protection. Some called it an invasion. Others called it salvation. But every intelligent species in the galaxy heard that message, and they understood what it meant. Earth was no longer hiding. The war machine had been unleashed, and it would not stop until the threat was gone forever. Across the stars, silence broke. Dozens of species had picked up the signal Earth's transmission, cold and final. This world is now under Deathworlder protection. It echoed through the hyperspace channels like a gunshot in a quiet room. The Galactic Accord, the Peace Council of Nine, the neutral worlds of Caver, they all heard it. And none of them dared respond. For centuries, Earth had been a distant legend. A death world. Yes, but more than that. A world of chaos, violence, unpredictable minds. How most species evolve with balance, Earth's people had evolved through fire and rage. Some thought the humans had gone extinct. Others believed they had retreated into isolation. A few foolish explorers had tried to reach them. None returned now. Earth was back. And not with diplomats or treaties, but with a fleet that spent starlight and crushed enemies in moments. In a dark chamber aboard the spire of Ornthal, the Katari war priests gathered. High Commander Valix, a creature with silver skin and 12 thought streams, watched the replay footage Earth's black core walking through flame, crushing shadow beasts into the soil. This is not rescue, he said. This is domination. In another corner of the galaxy, in the glass city of Solon Ray, the Asari thinkers ran simulations. Earth's war machines were far more advanced than previously believed. Their energy weapons were emotional-coded. Their tactics relied on unified pain networks. They didn't just fight with metal, they fought with memory. This is not warfare, one scientist whispered. This is vengeance turned into science. Back on Valari Prime, the sky remained. Crowded with Earth's warships, the humans weren't leaving. Instead, they expanded. New command zones. New airfields. Mobile weapons the size of cities, and the humans still spoke very little. They just built. The Valari tried again to understand. Them, they sent gifts, music, artwork, even food. But nothing was ever answered. Until one day, a message arrived from Earth, not to the VARI, to the entire galaxy. It wasn't sent through diplomatic channels. It was broadcast directly wide spectrum. It's unstoppable, unfiltered. It showed a field of human graves, hundreds, maybe thousands. Upon rows, on a burned world, wind howling through cracked stone, then a voice spoke. Calm, slow female. We were alone once. No one came when we cried out. We begged, we bled, we broke. And the stars watched. Now the stars will remember forever. That was it, just that message. But it shook the galaxy. For days, no one spoke openly of Earth, but in whispers, fear spread. The humans don't save. They erase threats in a neutral sector. The Mesari Confederation called an emergency meeting there. Leader, Supreme Counselor Irin, stood before her people. We must stop Earth, she said, before they spread. But that night she disappeared. Her ship was found drifting. No signs of violence. Only a black feather painted onto the bridge. Wall. One word written in Terran glyphs. Watched. And so, the galaxy went quiet again. Earth didn't make threats. Earth didn't ask for obedience. Earth simply moved forward. Back on Valari Prime, Commander Rourke was inside the Central War Command. She stood before a deep space map, watching as new energy signatures flared near. It's the edge of known space. The shadows were spreading again. The enemy hadn't stopped. It had only changed. Her second in command, Granger, stepped up beside her. Reports say 10 more worlds are falling. Rourke's jaw tightened. The galaxy still waits for someone else to fight. Granger nodded. Until the Deathworlders show up. She didn't smile. She simply said, prepare the next wave. Activate deep siege units. Load anti-thought munitions. And then she added one last command. Broadcast our next move. Openly? Granger asked. Yes, she said. Let the galaxy feel it. Let them know exactly who's coming. A minute later, Earth's warfleet activated a new signal. Simple message pulsed across the stars. Do not follow us. Do not beg us when we come. It's already too late. On faraway planets, children cried in their sleep as the signal echoed into their dreams. On space stations, crews whispered old myths about the first death world, the cursed blue planet, and on Valari Prime. Small child looked up into the sky and asked, are the monsters gone? Her mother held her close and whispered, yes, because now the scarier ones are here. And in the darkness of the stars, the enemy felt it too. The fear, not of death, but of remembrance, because the humans didn't forget, and they were bringing everything they remembered, fire and steel. The war had changed. At first, the enemy had struck blindly like beasts hunting light in the dark. It destroyed Valari worlds with no reason, no message, no demands. Earth responded with overwhelming force, ending battles before they began. Cities were fortified, skies filled with fleets, and the enemy was beaten again and again. But now, the pattern shifted. The shadows stopped charging into battle. They started watching, waiting, studying, and then they did something no one expected. They captured a human. It happened during a small outpost skirmish on Valari's ice moon. Tarsisphore, a Deathworlder squad, was sweeping a collapsed structure, scanning for enemy movement. Then came a pulse of memory wave so strong, it stunned the entire unit. In that moment of stillness, when Soldier Sergeant Vale was taken, no traces, no blood, no fight. He simply vanished. It was the first time the enemy had ever taken a Deathworlder. Alive. Back aboard Wrath of Terra, the alarm echoed through every deck. Commander Ellen Rourke stood frozen for just 1 second. 1 second of silence. Then she snapped into motion. Locked down every outpost in a 5,000-kilometer radius. Deployed Dark Trace drones. Prepare for soul signature recovery. Her voice was steady, but inside, she knew the truth. This wasn't about Vale. This was a trap. Down. In the cold void, somewhere beyond known space, the enemy had placed the human inside a containment chamber. It wasn't metal. It wasn't energy. It was something else, alive and thinking. It pressed against his memories, pulled at his mind, but it found something it did not expect. It found human rage. Sergeant Vale's past wasn't just battlefields. It was loss, pain, screams. His family had died in the Great Collapse. He had buried his brother in sand. He had watched entire cities fall. The enemy tried to break his mind, and instead got trapped inside it. Suddenly the hive mind began to shake. The shadow beings couldn't understand it. This one human carried more pain than an entire race. And not only had he survived it, he had used it to grow stronger. The shadows screamed. They tore through his memories, searching for a weakness. But every time they dug deeper, they found something more horrifying. Hope wrapped in hatred. Love turned into fire. And behind it all, a voice, Vale's voice, whispering through the pain. Keep going. Keep hurting. I want you to feel what I felt. Back on Valari Prime, Earth's AI network picked up something strange. A new signal, a psychic broadcast. Not of enemy design. It was human. Sergeant Vale was speaking. Through the enemy. Technicians stared in disbelief as a message echoed across every Terran system. I see them. They're afraid of us. Not because we kill, but because we feel, because we endure. Amanda Rourke clenched her fist. They tried to study us, she said coldly. Let's show them the price of curiosity. She turned to her weapons officer. Deploy Project Revenant. The officer hesitated. That unit's never been field tested. Rourke's voice was like ice. Now it will be. Within the hour, the Revenant was released. It wasn't a weapon. It was a person, or something that used to be got named. Revenant 09. It was a Deathworlder soldier who had died in the siege of Mars, and brought back with cybernetic reconstruction. His body was bone and steel. His mind was half memory, half AI. He didn't speak, he didn't eat, he only hunted, dropped behind enemy lines. Revenant 09 tore through reality with anti-thought blades weapons that shredded both flesh and memory. He didn't just kill shadows, he unwrote them. Enemy scouts fell back. The hive screamed. And somewhere deep in the dark, Sergeant Vale smiled, because he was still alive, still resisting, still human. Later, in the command center, Earth's AI presented new data. Enemy behavior had shifted. They were retreating, fragmenting, weakening. Rourke stared at the screen. They're scared. Granger raised a brow. Scared of what? Rourke didn't blink. Tried to become us, and they couldn't take it. They thought they'd absorb us. But they didn't understand what we really are. Granger nodded slowly. Deathworlders. No, she replied. Survivors. Back on the battlefield, Revenant 09 stood alone in a field of ash. Above him, enemy corpses crumbled into dust. Around him, Earth's drones circled in silence. He looked up into the sky and whispered something no one heard, but the enemy did. And for the first time, it began to retreat. The shadows were retreating. Across Vellery space, the enemy vanished one system at a time. No more rifts, no more assaults. The darkness that once swallowed entire worlds now ran like a wounded animal. To most, it felt like victory. Celebration. Spread through the Vellery cities. Cheers, light, music again after so long. But Earth did not celebrate. Commander Ellen Rourke stood on the bridge of Wrath of Terra, unmoving eyes fixed on the deep space scans. Dozens of red lines blinked out across the star map, enemy traces going dark. But to her, that wasn't peace. It was preparation. She turned to her AI command unit. Status on shadow residue tracking, the synthetic voice replied, residual. Energy is dispersing, but all paths trace back to 1-point sector null. Uncharted. Forbidden by galactic accord. Coordinates? Rourke asked. A red circle pulsed on the display. A single star system. No name, no history, just void. This is where they came from, she said coldly. This is where they end. And with that, Earth began Operation Scorchfire, Fleet. Command activated the burn protocol, full mobilization order. No diplomats, no relief teams. Just the Deathworlder war machine. Moving toward the enemy's home system with one mission, total erasure. The Vellery Council begged for caution. Maybe the enemy is finished, he pleaded. Maybe they won't return. Don't risk starting something bigger. But Earth had already made the decision because humanity knew something the galaxy still refused to understand. You don't wait for the fire to come back. You burn it to the roots. 3 days later, the largest fleet Earth had ever assembled jumped into Sector Null. 140 ships. Assault carriers. Blackout cruisers. Planet-breaker artillery barges. Thousands of drones and killmechs. Launched into the black void like a swarm of steel, what they found was worse than war. The enemy world wasn't a planet, it was a living moon. It pulsed with energy. Its surface constantly shifting flesh and rock and metal merged into one. The shadows hadn't just come from here. They had been grown here. Rourke's voice echoed through the fleet. No survivors. No negotiations. We burn everything. Earth's first strike was called the Silence Lanza gravity-bending beam that compressed a continent into dust. But the enemy responded fast. The planet itself screamed, launching shadow thoughts into orbit. Ships were hit by memory spikes. Systems going offline as ancient emotions flooded their processors. But the humans came prepared. Revenant 09 led the assault teams. Dropped from orbit in Titan-class pods, his blades split the living ground. Him came Deathworlders in mech suits, moving through toxic storms with perfect precision.
Ow.
They planted soul bombs devices that detonated not with fire, but with psychic screams, disrupting every enemy around them, from space, Wrath of Terra, launched the Doomsong Protocol, an eye-driven strike that rewrote enemy signals into chaotic noise. The hive mind started breaking apart, fighting itself. Still, the enemy fought hard, but Earth fought harder. On the third day, they found the heart. Deep underground, a massive core part machine. Part consciousness pulsed with every enemy thought. It had faces, memories, eyes of species long extinct. Earth scanners identified them as ancient civilizations. All absorbed, all lost. Rourke saw it and whispered, "This is where the galaxy's pain went to hide." Then she gave the final order. "Scorch it." The fleet fired everything. Rail cannons, orbital spears, atmosphere crushers. The moon cracked. The heart screamed. Reality bent, and then it was gone. No explosion, no light, just silence. The enemy hive mind collapsed across the galaxy. Everywhere the shadows had touched those infected, those dreaming, those marked, they all woke, confused, free, and for the first time in 1,000 years. The darkness stopped spreading. But Earth didn't cheer, because they knew what came next. The galaxy would turn to them. Not in thanks, but in fear. Back on Valari Prime, as the stars slowly returned to the sky, a young child asked her teacher, "Will the humans go home now?" The teacher looked up at the orbiting ships and said softly, "They've already burned someone's home. Maybe now they'll build a new one, somewhere deep in space." Commander Rourke stood alone, watching the wreckage of the enemy world drift. She didn't smile, she didn't cry, she just said one word: remember. The enemy was gone. Their world burned to ash. Their hive shattered. Their darkness silent. And yet, the galaxy did not celebrate. It trembled, from the stars of the Tazar colonies to the deep core of the Osari Empire. The same question spread, like wildfire. Who stops the Deathworlders? When there's no one left to fight? On Valari Prime, the skies finally cleared. Earth's fleet remained, but no weapons fired. No cities were taken. Instead, the humans began to dismantle some of their outer defense rings. A few dropships lifted off quietly. Turning to their warships above, Commander Ellen Rourke stood in the central command tower, staring at the stars. For weeks, she had received messages from across the galaxy. Warnings, questions, accusations. Diplomats demanded answers. Councils threatened sanctions. Some even whispered of building an alliance not against the shadows, but against Earth to them. Earth had crossed a line. They had not just fought back. They had unleashed weapons that rewrote the battlefield. They had used memory, pain, and rage as tools of war. They had proven one terrifying truth: humanity wasn't just advanced, it was unforgiving. One signal was received from the Galactic Peace Accord. A direct message to Rourke: your intervention has ended a great threat, but your methods violate every law of war. You used weapons beyond reason, beyond morality. Earth must explain itself. Rourke read the message once. Then she sent her reply not just to the Accord, but to every species across the stars. A short video. The screen lit up with a burned city. Not alien. Earth. Broken buildings. Dead trees. Streets. A voice, calm and clear, filled the silence. When our cities burned, no one came. When our skies fell, you watched. When we begged for help, the galaxy turned its back, so we became something else. The screen shifted to Earth's fleet, to the black core walking through fire. 2 Revenant 09 standing among shadows. To the living enemy world, now just dust. Then the voice spoke again. We are not monsters. We are not saviors. We are what happens. And survival becomes our only law. The video ended, but the galaxy could not forget. That same night, on Valari Prime, Counselor Ren Varese stood beside Rourke as the last supply hauler lifted off. "Is it true?" he asked. "You're leaving?" Rourke nodded once. "Our mission's complete. The threat is over." Ren hesitated. "The galaxy doesn't trust you. Some want revenge. They fear what you've become." Her voice was calm. "Good." He blinked. "You want them afraid?" "I want them prepared," she said. "Because one day, something worse than shadows will come. And when it does, they won't hesitate to ask for Earth again. And what happens then?" She turned to face him fully. "Then they'll remember why we won." Above them, Earth's fleet moved like silent thunder, jumping away one by one into hyperspace. No speeches. No parades. Just a quiet departure, like ghosts fading into the dark. But one final transmission was left behind, a warning. It broadcast on every open channel, repeating only once every 24 hours. No threats, no demands, just 5 simple words. Do not call us lightly. Across the stars, species watched and remembered. Because Earth had not just saved a world, it had shown the galaxy what it means to be born on a death world. And long after the war was over, that memory would remain. A shadow in every council meeting, a whisper in every academy, a story parents would tell their children when they looked at the stars. They asked for rescue. But what came was the full might of humanity's war machine, and the stars would never forget.